you can't mask that anxiety 24/7. So it ends up, I feel, coming out more in your closest relationships.
That's so true.
Which is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, what you said kind of made me remind me of my ex-girlfriend. Like, my ex-girlfriend was making a lot more money than me, and then I would always get pissed off, like, over small things, like, she'd try to pick up the check or something, and I would be like, no, I'm not picking it up. I'm really insecure. It's like,
The broke alpha male. That is Terry Boo.
yeah.
Pretending to be anyone, I was living what I thought was an authentic life, but once you strip away what you think are other people's expectations or things that, you artificially built in your head, and strip that away, the real you can come out. And I didn't belong at Harvard, like that imposter syndrome.
It's really deep.
It got really deep. Like, at some point after about a year, I was just sick of being that guy. And I was like, I need to go back to who I am, like who I feel I am.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to start doing comedy just to try to force that. And I think comedy combined with, therapy and meditation and other things got me out of it. And I feel like so much happier, more like myself than I ever have. I hope you're spending time and living your life the way you actually want to be spending your time, and not in pursuit of something nebulous that will probably not even make you happy if you achieve it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting advice just from listening to you talk to yourself.
I worked on Wall Street a couple of years, and it was also something that always filled me with anxiety. It was like this effort to just make it, no matter what that means. And I think it led me down a lot of paths, which I regret none of it, but it led me down a path that is not who I am in a way, which is, I don't know, I was just trying to be a CEO. That's all I really wanted to be. But I don't have either the temperament for it, nor the skill set, nor really would I enjoy a job like that. I'd much rather be working in environments that are a bit more creative and with people I love and that I find fun, right? And so that's why later in my life I switched.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, man.
You're a very sexy person.
Oh, stop it. I try to be. So I came to the U.S. twice, actually. It was always because of my mom's job. She's in the diplomatic service of Argentina. So I moved to D.C. when I was 3 years old, went back to Argentina when I was 9, and came back here when I was 18. So my teenage years were in Argentina, but then most of the rest of my life has been in the U.S. I still consider myself mostly Argentinian, despite the fact that, I speak English fine and I've been here for so long, but culturally I just feel, when I go back home to Argentina, that feels like home. We're going through a kidney donor exchange, so my mom doesn't donate directly to my sister, but my mom donates to someone else, and then someone else donates to my sister.
Man, it's a crazy system.
It is, yeah. Thank God it exists, because it saves so many lives. But yeah, that's how we're moving forward with it. And then I have a backup kidney for when my sister might need it, 10 to 20 years down the line.
That's true.
So I guess I need to take care of the kidney, which I think I'm doing an all right job of.
Drinking water and stuff?
Drinking water, definitely trying to be healthier than I used to be.
Do you drink?
I do, but I have a very different relationship with alcohol than I used to. So I used to.
Drink a lot.
I used to go pretty hard, yeah. I think as a teenager and well into my 20s, just college, and I lived in Miami for a while, which was the most fun 3 years of my life, but certainly not the healthiest. Then business school, and I've always drank a little bit too much, and I kind of reset that last year. I spent 4 or 5 months not drinking at all.
Oh, shoot.
Which was great. And then now I do drink again, but it's completely different than it used to be. So I'll have
Nice.
1, 2, maybe 3 drinks once a week. And every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pretty much not drinking at all.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very different. Before I would like meet up with friends on a Saturday at noon for brunch and just keep that going until like 1 in the morning sometimes. So it's very different. I feel so much better, happier, and just get into less trouble as well, which is huge.
It sounds like, compared to your very composed vibe right now, it sounds like you were partying a lot.
Yeah, well, yes, true.
Oh.
I don't know if it was partying the way you might think of partying, like, oh, going to the clubs and going crazy. No, it was more just meet up with my 4 to 5 friends, drink way too much, and
That's fun.
which is fun. Of course, it's fun. I think it's part of a lot of people's lives at some point. But I'm 36 now, and like, the biggest issue for me was also just having that constant brain fog that you have when you're, kind of habitually drinking.
Yeah.
And I never felt like I had a full clarity of mind.
Yeah.
So now having that is huge for me.
Shoot.
And even when I come back to the US, it almost feels like America sometimes doesn't feel real to me. It feels like, and the US has a lot of issues, of course, but it also feels a little bit like Disneyland compared to like living in countries that, struggle every day to survive, and people are just doing their best to make ends meet. And then you come here and there's all sorts of people going through all sorts of struggles, but it's certainly sanitized compared to what it might be in Argentina. Like there's a sense sometimes that Argentina's my reality, but I live here, which is weird to describe. But do you ever get that? Like, because you're from South Korea, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel like yourself? Do you feel more Korean, more American? Where do you feel more at home?
I feel more Korean, but nobody in Korea thinks I'm Korean.
Yeah, I get that
You're
too.
right.
Yeah, I get the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you ask my Argentinian friends, I'm not Argentinian at all.
Really?
Like, I'm super American, but that's not how I view myself, at least. I feel
American people probably think you're pretty super Argentinian, no?
Yes and no. I think they see my hands moving a lot, and they notice I'm not from here, right? But yeah, I think most people realize I'm not American. They don't know I'm Argentinian necessarily, because Argentina is well known for soccer and meat, but not super well known beyond that, right? It's a bit of a mystery to a lot of people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, your mom is a diplomat?
Yeah, she works in the diplomatic service, so it doesn't mean very small difference, but a diplomat is out there like speaking with, they would be representing Argentina to congressmen, to the State Department, to the Treasury Department, try to get business Argentina. That's what a diplomat does.
Yeah.
My mom was administrative within the embassy, so kind of helps run things at the embassy.
Yeah.
But yeah, she had diplomatic status. I had diplomatic status for a little while, which meant that I couldn't be arrested, which was fun. I didn't really take advantage of that all that much. But yeah, she was in diplomatic service.
Dang. And are you a resident or a citizen?
I am now a citizen.
Oh,
Yeah, I became a citizen in 2016.
Oh, dang.
A weird year to become an American, because that's like the year Trump got elected and things got. But despite the fact that I feel more Argentinian, I'm also very proud of being American, right?
Yeah.
The day I became American was a beautiful day. It was in Boston, in this like historical place called Faneuil Hall, which is this old building from the 16 or 1700s. I was next to this Dominican woman who had lived in the US 40 years, was finally becoming American. She was like in her 60s. And then after that, a bunch of my friends and I went and did a bar hop of historical bars in Boston that were relevant to the American Revolution. And it was great. I love being American as well, right? It's just kind of this duality that I never quite know where I fit, which I'm sure you feel the same.
Boston was pretty fun. I don't go to Boston very often, but I was there. It's kind of like a cool, kind of like a European vibe.
It does. It's probably the most European of all American cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I have a love-hate relationship with Boston, so I enjoyed it enormously, right? Enormously. I was in business school at the time, so that's kind of fun in and of itself.
Harvard, everyone.
Yes. Yes. So that was super fun, and I had a great time there, but I don't think I would live there long term. It's freezing. It's a very diverse city. It is a diverse city, but it has some tensions and things there. But it's a beautiful, fun city. If you're young, it's a great time.
Yeah, there's too many Asians. I hate Asians.
That was always my complaint. Yeah. That was my biggest issue. Yeah. No.
So Ivan, I'm not sure if I ever told you this, but at one point, I was like super like gung ho about like GMAT and like, so you went through that whole
That's
crazy
right.
chaos.
Correct. Yeah. So right out of college, I decided to take the GMAT immediately right after college because concepts are fresher in your mind. You can get a better score, and I got a solid score. I got 710, which was at the time the average to get into like a Harvard or whatever. But then 5 years passed. I wasn't necessarily in a hurry to get my MBA.
Yeah.
But that score expires after 5 years. Right. So when those 5 years were almost done, I was like, well, I have to make a decision. So fuck it. Let's just apply to business school.
Gosh.
And then I got in, and I couldn't believe it at all, right? I was a very bad student in high school. I got better in college, but I started off at a community college, and then I went to a state school, University of Maryland, which was a great school. But like nothing in my trajectory, at least when I was younger, would have anticipated that I would end up like at a place like Harvard. Then in my 20s, I became like overly ambitious, and I think that's where things started to change. But what do I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it was. This is one of the things that is the hardest for me to analyze about myself, which is I've always wanted to be someone, but didn't know who I was, if that makes sense. I just knew I wanted to be important in some way. I don't know, maybe because I lived in Washington, D.C. for a while and saw a lot of like monuments, and I was like, I want a monument one day. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I became hyper ambitious in my 20s, like in college, and then, but yeah.
Did you like your time in Wall Street?
Oh no, absolutely. But no one does. No one enjoys Wall Street. You withstand Wall Street, and some people decide to make that their lives, which is great. And I can bring certainly a lot of wealth and prestige, and for a lot of people also a sense of true accomplishment. But it's just tedious work, and you're surrounded by people that are not. It's not bad people. There's a lot of very good people on Wall Street, but they're all burnt out. Everyone's burnt out. Everyone's on edge. And it was just, I found that environment highly suffocating. I just couldn't. I did it for 2 years. I did what's called an analyst program. I worked at Morgan Stanley in real estate investment banking. But after 2 years, I was like, this is just not, it's not a path. I can't live working 16-hour days and weekends and, not sleeping enough, and I got so fat, and it was just a lot. And yeah, that's also like when my drinking started to, go up a little bit. So after that, that's when I moved to Miami and lived there for 3 years. It was great.
Okay, I think I'm starting to put the puzzle of
At least of the
together.
career, yeah.
Okay, so when did the comedy piece come in?
Yeah, I would say I've always wanted to be in comedy. I don't know if I'm particularly funny or not, but I've always been kind of the goofy one. In every group of friends I've been in, I'm always the one trying to come up with jokes, make people laugh.
I've always loved your sets.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I love your sets. They're amazing. So I've always had that, right? Kind of class clown vibe.
Yeah.
When I moved to the US when I was 18, I really started to watch more comedy because there is stand-up in Argentina, but not as much as here, and I like the stand-up here way more.
Yeah.
And I was watching so much late night. I loved Craig Ferguson's show, Conan O'Brien, the Colbert Report, which I still think is one of the best comedy shows ever made. So I loved all this. Started to dabble, but never really took the plunge. I was kind of a coward when I was 18. Then when I was 29, so 7 years ago, when I was at business school, they had a stand-up show, and they were like, hey, do you want to be part of the stand-up show? And I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it. And it was the most fun I've ever had. To this day, I still consider that set my best set ever. I did 15 minutes. It was a comedy showcase in April 2017. And when I look back at it, I watched the video recently because I've been trying to write material about my time at Harvard. And my stage presence is trash, obviously. I'm so nervous. I'm like walking all over the place. But there were some pretty good jokes there. And it was, looking back, it was a ballsy set. Because I was saying a lot of shit about how like Harvard is run, how like even though it's racially diverse, it's not socioeconomically diverse at all. It's just like cookie cutter person from Argentina, from the US, from different countries, but there's only like 3 to 4 categories of people who end up. So I was like joking about that. I also joked a lot about my insecurity and my feeling that I didn't belong at Harvard, like that imposter syndrome.
It's really deep.
It got really deep. Like at some point after about a year, I was just sick of being that guy. And I was like, I need to like go back to who I am, like who I feel I am. Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to start doing comedy just to try to force that. And I think comedy combined with, therapy and meditation and other things like got me out of it. And I feel like so much happier and more like myself than I ever have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a funny fact, if anything positive comes out of the experience.
Yeah, I mean...
You talk about it on stage.
Yeah, well, the story I'm going to say very briefly is my ex was working as a manager for the Black Keys and eventually started cheating on me with the drummer from the Black Keys. And I found out about it because the drummer's wife tweeted it.
Yeah.
And that led to a cascade of events, I guess.
Yeah.
So very, very shocking, very traumatic, obviously, right? And for a while there, I was destroyed. I just was. It was, maybe I've had a very cushy life, but this was, at the time, the worst thing that had ever happened to me. And the craziest thing was, like, I felt like my mind broke. What I mean by that is, there was a part of me in my brain that continued to think rationally, but another part of my brain which was just all over the place. And I kind of liken it to having a dog on a leash, where the voice in me that was still me was the one trying to hold on to the dog, but the dog was doing whatever the fuck it wanted. And over time, through therapy, meditation, whatever, and just like going through that process, I started to learn how to control the dog again. And once that happened, I became, I think, kind of like a fuller version of myself. And this is really delving into therapy very quickly. But yeah, like once I figured that out, it was like, I'm going to go into comedy and I'm going to live the life I've always wanted.
Yeah.
And not kind of live a life where I was just going through the motions, trying to achieve this thing that I didn't even want. It was like introspection. What do I actually want? How do I want to live my life? What do I want to be doing? And that's when I got into comedy and also started really focusing on rebuilding a lot of relationships. I feel like with a lot of friends and family, just trying to reconnect with people in a way where I feel like I had isolated myself in this relationship and with COVID, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think, that's what makes people happy is the strength of their relationships, right? So really focusing on that. And it's been a fantastic experience.
I have a question. When you were in that relationship, so you weren't doing much of comedy at all. Like you weren't even interested.
No. I mean, I was interested in that. I watched it all the time. Like I barely ever even watched dramas on TV. I've never seen Game of Thrones, anything. Right. All I watch is comedy.
Yeah.
And this has been true since I was a kid. But I didn't perform anything.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Did performing and kind of talking about your trauma kind of help?
Yeah. It's the main thing that helped.
Yeah.
Right? It's the main thing that helped. I just think being able to voice it, and you probably feel this way too. Don't you feel more comfortable speaking on stage about shit than talking to any one person about it?
Yeah.
It's crazy how that is. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But going through that process and like talking about it on stage, it's the one thing that like got me out of it. And I always thought I was an introspective person. And then I realized I am not. I've never been introspective. I thought I was. I thought I knew myself and like knew how to analyze myself. And then going through all this process and especially writing and forcing myself to write and think about how I'm feeling, what am I thinking, that's really what made me better, right? I don't know. It's just, maybe I felt like there was no one in my life I could really talk to about these things. And therapy is great, but it's only once a week, right? You need to be able to talk about these things a little bit more, and stand-up helped me with that.
I feel like a lot of comics, we don't have money to pay for therapists. That's why we pay $5 for those open mics.
Yeah, and it's not a replacement for therapy. No one should think it is. It can be an aid. It can be something that forces you to think. But nothing about going into dark rooms at 3 p.m. and paying $5 to talk to strangers in and of itself is therapy. It can be a part of trying to be better, but it's not in and of itself therapy. I wasn't pretending to be anyone. I was living what I thought was an authentic life, but once you strip away what you think are other people's expectations or things that you artificially built in your head and strip that away, the real you can come out. And people are always dealing with someone who's like anxious and like unfulfilled, but they don't even understand why. So there's nothing in the life that they're leading that will give them that. Right? And I think especially for all of my exes, I've been in several relationships. They've had to deal with that, which is unfair to them as well, right?
Because you were feeling.
Because I was always anxious.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Just anxiety ridden.
Yeah.
And that's just not a good energy to bring back home, right?
Right.
And I can imagine how tough that was for everyone in my life at the time. At least the people that I didn't mask it that much for, right? So friends, I would mask it. But you can't mask that anxiety 24/7. So it ends up, I feel, coming out more in your closest relationships.
That's so true.
Which is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, what you said kind of made me remind me of my ex-girlfriend. Like, my ex-girlfriend was making a lot more money than me, and then I would always get pissed off, like, over small things, like, she'd try to pick up the check or something, and I would be like, no, I'm not picking it up. I'm really insecure. It's like,
The broke alpha male.
Yeah.
That is Terry Boo.
yeah. So it kind of made me think about that.
Yeah, and another thing that's I find annoying, and I'm still guilty of this, is don't you feel sometimes that we are shittier to the people we love the most?
Yeah.
It almost feels like we just take for granted those relationships, right? Because they're unconditional. So unconditional relationships, we don't have to worry about as much. So I'm sometimes shitty to my parents, and there's no one I love more in my life. Like, I have amazing parents. And if I spend more than 2 to 3 days with them, at some point I say something shitty and hurtful, and I always feel terrible. But yeah, it's just, it's something that I'm trying to be way more mindful of. And it's like investing in those unconditional relationships. Because sometimes we're so focused on the conditional ones, which makes sense rationally because conditional relationships can be lost at any time, that we ignore those that are always there for us. And that's fucked up and something I'm trying to correct as much as I possibly can.
Is everybody on the East Coast, like DC?
Yeah, my parents and siblings are, DC and New York, all of them.
Your sisters? In...
New York. My sister's in New York, yeah. Her surgery is now in 26 days on the 28th. Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you go back and see them a lot?
Not as much as I'd like, especially now that I'm broker than I used to be. But I try to go back 3 times a year, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's a good amount, but when I lived on the East Coast, even if I didn't live in their same city, I would try to go like 6 times a year, like every 2 months. So it's definitely a reduction for sure. Are your parents in Korea?
No.
Sorry.
My mom's here. She's retired. My dad's in Korea.
Got it.
They're divorced. But I feel like you're a much better son than I am because whenever even I have the ability to go back, I just don't go back because I should see them more.
I'll just talk to them more, right? Like, it means so much to them, and I'm shitty about it. Like, if you call your parents, like, that makes their fucking day sometimes, right?
That's true.
And I'm like, no, I got to go to my 3 p.m. Hollywood comedy mic, and I don't call them. And like, so I've been trying to. I'm still not great, but I'm better than I used to be.
Nice. I have a lot. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have a lot of things to learn from Ivan.
No, you don't. I'm a mess.
Are you dating Ivan now?
Yes. Yes, but casually. I'm actually like trying to be very protective of being single right now.
Nice.
Yeah, because I'm going through this process, right? Of figuring out what I want to do and who I want to be. And I'm trying to learn from past mistakes, right? And I feel like I want to feel like I understand myself and what I want first before I get into like a serious relationship. That's where I am right now. Old school John Mulaney or kind of those more polite but funny comics. That same multifacetedness I bring to stage, which I don't know if that's a good thing because it means I haven't found my comedic voice, right? I'm still kind of bumping all over the place. I think you have a very defined comedic voice.
Thank you. I don't think so.
You don't think so? Why not?
I don't know. I just say whatever just kind of comes to mind. I don't. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
If I had to define you, it would be an absurdist philosopher.
Oh.
Where you have to see through the jokes to see what you're saying, which is true about a lot of comics, but like your Mickey Mouse joke at Disneyland, right? Like, yeah, you're just jumping around stage with Mickey ears and it's kooky and funny, but like that reflects, and I don't know if this is something you explicitly thought about, but I think it's that you were working in IT and you hated it and you felt like you had to put on like a mask, right?
Yeah.
So that's a story, that's a message you're sending.
Yeah.
And that's, kind of has a philosophical element of like who we're trying to portray ourselves as in this environment. But it wouldn't be funny if you're talking about IT, so you do it as Mickey Mouse at Disneyland between cigarette breaks or something. And that's hilarious and funny and smart and insightful. And it hit me, like I saw myself in Mickey Mouse, right? So...
Oh, man.
Sorry, I know compliments probably make you uncomfortable. Then not achieving them can rock you to your core. And I hope I never fall back into that trap. So that's what I hope you're spending time and living your life the way you actually want to be spending your time and not in pursuit of something nebulous that will probably not even make you happy if you achieve it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting advice just from listening to you talk to yourself.
What would you say to yourself?
I have no idea. That's why I was asking you.
I hope you're rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about your comedic influences, if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. I used to love Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
But sometimes I don't know. I don't think I watched as much comedy as you did, Ivan, because I didn't know some of the comics you're mentioning, like Jared. Go watch Gerard Carmichael right now, dude. He has 2 specials on HBO, and he just came out with this reality show where the reality show is. It's more almost a documentary of his life and trying to figure different things out. It's really freaking good. Okay, and Pete Holmes, is it the guy he was on TV series?
He was on Crashing. He made Crashing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never seen his stand up either. So
you really haven't? Dude.
Good, right?
And he'll be right up your alley as well.
All right.
Yeah. You should definitely check him out.
Yeah, but I used to love Ali Wong, Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais.
I love Ricky Gervais's, like I love The Office. I think Afterlife was a very good show. I don't love his stand-up personally. It's just not my style. It's I don't like when anti-wokeness becomes self-referential. It's fine to not be woke. It's perfectly fine if you say what you want to say, like that's your art, and it doesn't necessarily reflect who you are as a person. I fully believe that. Like what you find funny and who you are sometimes at odds with each other, right? And that's kind of where funny lies. But I don't like it when comedy becomes like, ooh, look at me, I'm like a badass, I'm saying these things. And I do feel Like, there's a lot of that in Ricky Gervais. Like, ooh, just look at me. Look what I.
was very anti-woke.
He has certainly become that.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw his last special on Netflix. Yeah. And that's funny coming from a nobody comic who's only been doing it for 11 months, but to critique someone who is objectively an amazing comic. It's just that it's not my vibe.
I think that's valid.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't like woke comedy either, but I guess there is an element to like, oh, I'm gonna not be woke and I'm gonna be super edgy. And maybe that turns off people even more.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly fine with dark humor too.
Yeah.
I think some dark humor is amazing and it's so funny. Like Anthony Jeselnik.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Dark comic, one of the best, right? But he's not being anti-woke, and he's not being like, oh, you know this word people don't let you say? I'm going to say it, or stuff like that. Oh. It's more, I find humor in very dark things, and I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. Yeah. And he does it in a way where you can see that that's not who he is. That's his sense of humor. And those are two different things.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you find the LA comedy, the wokeness, it doesn't bother you? Like, do you fit in well?
I don't think it's that woke.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think it's that woke, or we're just currently going through a process of anti-wokeness, right? Because the pendulum swings. And I think it swung so far woke that now it kind of is swinging back to anti-woke. Yeah. And I'm fine with all of it. Like, again, it's not anti-wokeness in and of itself that bothers me. It's when that is in and of itself the joke. You know what I mean? When it's like,
I'm going to do this.
I'm going to do this, like, look at me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those comics don't realize is there are so many other comics doing the same thing. They just might not see them. Like, I don't know. And this isn't even anti-woke, but like, how many comics have you heard now say, homeless people? Why do they call them home? Like, now we got to call them unhoused. And that's, how many comics are making the same joke?
Why are they doing that?
What's that?
Why are they doing that?
I think it's...
Because
it can be for... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it is funny. Or how many people just like drop a surprise R word, right? And I think it's fine to use that word in the context of a bigger joke. Go for it, do your thing. But when that is the joke, it's just like blah, 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 R word. And like, that's the punchline in of itself. Then I'm like, all right, you're just trying to be edgy for edginess sake. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. But then say whatever. I say some horrific things sometimes on stage. Like, it's part of, especially at open mics where you're trying to figure out where the limit is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't judge that. I just judge, I mean, I already said it twice, but yeah, the anti-wokeness for anti-wokeness sake.
Sometimes I worry, I know that, nobody knows me either, but sometimes, like, the cancel culture, like, yesterday I was joking about, like, pedophilia.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't want people to think that I'm some kind of a pedophile.
I don't think anyone will. Yeah, I mean, getting canceled is a possibility for all of us.
Yeah. Because
another thing is culture is going to keep changing, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, something that we say today that is perfectly fine, 5 years from now, it'll be like, oh, he used to say this stuff. So you can't worry about it too much. And another thing is, what does canceled even mean? Because some of the canceled comics are having amazing careers post-cancellation. So amongst them, the comic we both love, Louis C.K., he's filling out arenas. I mean, last year, I think he filled out like Madison Square Garden at least more than once. So is anti-wokeness, being anti-woke, are you just trying to look for no one to judge you? then that is a losing cause. And also, I don't want that world either. I want people to be able to judge you for what you say, because you as a comic are judging the world for what it is. So this notion of me as a comic, I can say whatever I want about the world, but the world can't say anything about me. The fuck are we doing here? It's reciprocal. That said, you have to deal with the backlash and continue on. What worries me, though, and I think this might be what worries you, is being so worried about that backlash or that wokeness that it impacts your material. And I think that you should not be doing. I think you just got to do the material you want to do and that you find funny, and you just do it. And
whether you get judged or not.
Whether you get judged or not, because you're going to be judged anyways. You'll be judged for not being funny. You'll be judged for not being woke enough. You'll be judged for being too woke. You'll be judged for everything. So just do the comedy you want to do. Try to make it funny and come at it ideally from a standpoint that isn't ill-intentioned, right? Like if you're making jokes just to put people down, it's a little bit silly to want to do that. But saying something edgy or provocative is, I think, encouraged. Just deal with the backlash. Don't complain about that backlash, and don't try to avoid that backlash. It's gonna come. Deal with it. I don't know. That's how I think. But also, it's easy for me to say because I don't say hyper controversial things on stage either, right? So it's easier for me to say than maybe another comic.
No, but I'm with you. Like, can I just clarify? Like, there's a lot of bad things that would come from like watering myself down. Is that kind of am I on the track? Like, when comics do water themselves down out of fear of being judged or something, that would be like a negative thing. I
think it's a negative thing, yeah. I don't think you should water yourself down.
Yeah.
I just think don't pursue being edgy in and of itself. Okay. Pursue the comedy you love.
Yeah.
Write what you love. Do what you really want to say on stage. And if there's backlash, so be it, right? But if you try to avoid it, then you're watering down your comedy. If you try to make it overly edgy unnaturally, then you're not being true to yourself either. Both sides can be you not being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Trying to be edgy for edgy's sake or trying to play it too safe.
Yeah.
The truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Do that. Right? And try to make it as funny as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think that's how true.
My biggest concern is saying something on stage that then makes me unemployable in the corporate world. That's that part I need to be more protective of. But yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think about comedy, and again, if we got to cut this out, it's fine. When you think about comedy, what are you trying to accomplish?
Me?
Yeah.
Like a lot of what you were saying, or like being true to myself. There was a period when I was always worried about what people would think about me. Sometimes I'm still worried.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing like too much controversial stuff. But then I feel bad about myself for like not being true. So and then like maybe I should have said it for that one person who would like really understand me. That's what I'm thinking lately. Like if I do puns and just like lighthearted jokes, maybe it'll make everybody laugh and I'll have a fun performance. Yeah, but then if I do that one thing, maybe everybody will get pissed off at me. That like one person I might connect with that person better. But like I'm always confused because then otherwise I'm not gonna get booked if I keep pissing people off like that. So.
Well, sure, but yeah, I mean that's true. That's part of the balance between artistic and trying to make a living, right? I don't think you make puns. I wouldn't say. You have one-liners,
Oh,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
You have a good deal of one-liners, you use some props sometimes. You're not a prop comic, but you use it sometimes, or you use different comedic devices. But none of your comedy is straightforward or simple. I don't think.
Easy one.
I don't think so. Anyone who sees it that way isn't getting the joke. I feel like.
Thanks. Oh, by the way, prop comedy, it sometimes works at the improv room, the happy hour mic.
Oh really?
But Rita is never gonna pass the props.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it works. Because like everybody just like knows that you're just doing it for the shit.
For fun, yeah. Well, fair enough, right? It is ultimately a traditional stand-up room.
Yeah.
I've only now started going to those open mics.
Yeah.
And I don't even really feel like I'm ready.
But you did well when
I did okay.
Yeah.
At the Improv, like back in January, February, I did okay. But I think there's part of me that doesn't want to like waste Rita or other people's time before I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to really start putting myself out there as a comic when I consider myself like closer to being like a killer, so to speak, right? I'm happy with the progress I've made, but I feel like I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And I've been a bit of a coward in terms of like putting my name in the bucket at the Improv because of that. And other people have a completely different perspective, and they are probably right, which is you just got to do it. You got to get your reps in, you got to show yourself and show your progression. But there's something in me where like, I will do any show, I will do any mic, I will do all sorts of stuff, but I don't want to do those more like audition type mics.
Yeah.
Or really put content online either until I feel like this is truly good. And like if I were someone trying to find comedy on Netflix and I saw that, I would think that's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's something to that because I was looking at some of the jokes that I was gonna do back in December when I kept coming back for the happy hour mic.
And you hate them.
It's super cringe.
Yeah, you hate them.
I should not have done those.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't get picked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's how I feel. I feel like, especially because I've only been doing it for now like 11 months. Right now, 1 month of comedy is over or close to 10% of my career, right? So in 1 month, I get 10% better, or you would hope.
Yeah.
So looking back 2 to 3 months ago, I'm 30% less of a comic. So it's like, I want to at least be a full year in and have like 3 minutes that kill every time I do it before I really start putting myself out there. And hopefully that happens soon. I don't know.
I'm rooting for you, Don.
Thanks, dude. I'm rooting for you. You're a good dude and you're a good comic, and I hope shit happens for you.
I'm not a good dude. Yesterday I was making jokes about the Nickelodeon documentary. Did you see that? The Dan Schneider?
I know what it is, but I haven't seen it. Well,
I'm sorry.
do you want to say the jokes, or would you rather not?
Nah.
Okay, fair enough. But again, I don't. As long as it didn't come from a mean-spirited, which it didn't, then that is just your comedy and you as a person being two different things. And it's part of you, right? Your sense of humor is part of you, but it doesn't define you as a person, or else we're all garbage humans, right? Because so many of what makes us laugh is inappropriate and is wrong, and you need that in a way. So yeah, I try to never feel bad about a joke or take offense at a joke. But it's hard, especially if you make a joke and it has a negative reaction in someone. Perhaps they were hurt by whatever.
I'm always afraid of that.
Not by what you're saying, but that you're talking about something that has hurt them in the past. that can make you feel very shitty.
Yeah.
But that's, in a way, the art form. It's
Yeah.
a free-flowing, free-form art form.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And if you don't push any boundaries, then what are we doing here?
Man. You found some kind of a, I don't know, comedy...
Nerd. I'm a comedy nerd.
philosopher.
I've been, or sure, if you want to say that. I've watched so much comedy for
dang.
36 years. Like, I've been obsessed with comedy. I just never had the balls to do it. And that's why I fully recognize how terrible a comic I am, because I know so much about comedy. But yeah, I'm deeply analytical about comedy and very thoughtful about it.
Yeah. Man, I wouldn't have invited you here today if I didn't think you were...
Stop
shitty
it, Terry.
comic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying. Anyways, all right, Terry.
Thanks so
I
much,
love you,
Ivan.
man.
I love you, Ivan,
You're
too.
the best.
I can only guess continued success in all of your comedy and all kinds of amazing, brilliant stuff that you've been doing all your life.
Thanks, dude.
I mean, Ivan's a special person, everyone, so I just want you to know that.
Yeah, well, depends. And many things I'm very dumb.